Julia Hart directed and co-wrote I'm Your Woman. I'm Riley Chow of Gold Derby. Now, your main character, Jean, she spends so much of the film staying silent, being very still. So I'm wondering how that dictated the pace of the film and how you wrote that into the script in the first place.
Well, it was really a collaboration. Obviously, my husband, Jordan Horowitz, and I co-wrote the script, but also a collaboration between us and Rachel in the rehearsal. Rachel Brosnahan, who plays Jean, in the rehearsal process. Just, you know, you write like one action line, but there's so many different things that an actor can do with that. And so it was really fun. I love writing dialogue, but it was really fun exploring how much she could mine through a myriad of facial expressions from one line of action in the script.
The film opens with a voiceover, and then it's almost like there's a record scratch because we never hear that voiceover again. So I'm wondering what kind of rules you establish when you're writing a script about what kind of structural gimmicks to use and why you employed this one.
That actually happened in post, to be honest with you. I've had voiceover in film before that's been scripted in the script, but in watching the film, we felt like we wanted there to be more framing for Jean at the beginning when you first meet her, again, as you mentioned, because she's so quiet. And so we decided to utilize that in the post process in order to orient the audience in Jean's story and in her mind better from the beginning of the film moving forward. In general, I think, you know, you want to be careful with how you use voiceover. And so I think you can either use it once or two or three times, but I definitely don't love it when there's voiceover just kind of like throughout the whole film.
So very soon after that, she gets this baby, and I found that when I was watching the movie, I was wondering, for so long, like, where did this baby come from? But she doesn't really wonder that. So I'm wondering about that decision, I guess.
So that aspect of the film was inspired by Michael Mann's first film, Thief. And in that film, I don't want to give too much away for people who haven't seen it, but in that film, there is a similar story to a connection to a baby in terms of the way in which, people with criminal records can't adopt, and infertility over in your life. And so the collision of a criminal life with infertility is something that Michael Mann explored, and I think is really, really fascinating and heartbreaking. And so we wanted to explore that further than he did in that film in I'm Your Woman.
And do you find that when you write the script for a film that you're directing, that you're kind of more attached to the material, or do you find that you're actually more flexible and that you know the thinking behind it so you can easily change it?
That's a great question, and one I haven't been asked before. It's funny, like so I started out in my career only screenwriting. I didn't start directing until after I had written several scripts for other directors. And these two wonderful directors, who are also writers, hired me early on in my career to write a script for them. And they said to me, they were like, you're already directing on the page. And I don't think I had realized at that point in my career that I was writing more visually and in more of a directorial way than I think I was intending to. And they told me, they were like, you should probably direct. And so I think I've always kind of been directing, and Jordan's and my scripts are very visual. I believe a script shouldn't just be a blueprint for a film. I don't leave things out because I will know the thinking behind it on set. Mostly because I think that scripts are for everyone. They're not just for me to know what I'm directing. They're for my production designer and my DP and the actors, and everybody involved should really be able to have a visual sense of what it is you're all making together. And so I think that's something that's actually really important in the screenwriting process, at least for us.
In the credits of this movie, find how you're the director, you're the writer. Jordan Horowitz, he's the writer and he's the producer, and then Rachel Brosnahan is the producer and the star. I saw a recent interview where you said that you would be a terrible producer. And then you find it's so tricky because it's not an easy job, you said, and unfortunately a lot of times people take that title and don't really do the job. I find that screenwriting and directing are more tangible things, but producing, I feel like I still don't quite understand. What do you think, or I'm wondering why you have that hesitation to do it, and why you have the hesitation even though the titles are given out so willy-nilly sometimes.
It is so interesting, and I totally understand where you're coming from, because it's so interesting how little I think even people in our industry know what producing actually entails. It is, as you said, writing is so concrete. Directing is less concrete than writing, but certainly more concrete than producing. And I think we, as a film community, have a better sense of what that means. But so many people don't know what producer means, and so many people, I think, because the guild is structured differently, although now we have the PGA mark, which is wonderful and definitely a better form of oversight than we've had in the past. Can you tell I'm the wife of a producer? And I feel very passionately about this because he's such a good producer. And it turns out Rachel Brosnahan, also an amazing producer. It takes a certain skill set to be able to manage the business side of things, the budget, the schedule, as well as creative, as well as interpersonal structures on set and in the prep process and the post process. And I just like to get lost and be an artist in the work. And as a writer director with a strong producing team, I'm really able to do that. I don't want to have to worry about the budget and the schedule. I obviously have input in all of that, and I have an understanding of all of that, and I take all of that very seriously. But I love that I don't have to worry about getting it together and managing it. I just have to give my input as to whether a schedule feels artistically viable to me, achievable to me in the time given, but I don't have to worry about creating it. And I think that there are a lot of people who take the producer credit who then just like take the money and then show up at the premiere. And it drives me crazy because it's a really hard job and it's a really important job. And I think the main reason I'll never produce is because I already work with one of the best producers in the business. So why bother?
This movie is quite a departure from your previous directorial efforts. I feel like you're always kind of changing it up. And I'm hoping you can resolve kind of a longstanding question that I've had about the industry, where there are constantly kind of indie filmmakers who have this indie hit, and then they're given this, massive blockbuster. And then I kind of wonder, like, how they're able to manage that because it's so different. But I feel like you have a perspective where it's more about the storyteller, and they'll figure out the logistics later on. So I'm hoping you can speak to that.
Yeah, I feel really fortunate that I have been able to move from type of movie and budget and size and scope and all of that in a very practical way. My first movie, Miss Stevens, was micro budget. Jordan and I often joke that we spent more money on childcare than we did to make the movie. And then Fast Color was slightly bigger, still an independent film. And then Stargirl was the biggest movie I had made at that point, the first time I'd worked with the studio. And then I'm Your Woman was slightly bigger and my first time working with Amazon. So I've really enjoyed there's something about taking your time and developing your skills before you jump from a super tiny movie to a super huge movie. I've learned so much from making different types of films. Stargirl, my Disney Plus film, I got to learn how to direct musical numbers. It was the first time I directed a musical. On this film, it was the first time I was getting to learn how to direct crime drama set pieces, a shootout in a large space, a car chase. So I really love the opportunity to do different things, but I also really like taking your time and developing your skills and just working slowly towards bigger and bigger budgets. I don't know that I would have ever felt comfortable jumping from, as you said, like a small indie film to a huge blockbuster. Power to all of the indie filmmakers who've made that leap. I'd be curious to hear their experiences, but I've really enjoyed getting to learn as I go.
Going back to the premiere of the film, this premiered as the opening film at the AFI Fest. You did a panel for that one. You said that you had a favorite needle drop in I'm Your Woman that you couldn't talk about at the time because the film hadn't come out. So I'm wondering if you can identify that now.
So It's hard because there's actually two, but they're both Aretha Franklin. So I sort of think of them as in conversation with each other. But Natural Woman, Carole King's song Natural Woman, as covered by Aretha Franklin, is my favorite song of all time. And I sing it to my kids. Even though it's a romantic song, it's funny, like you start to run out of lullabies after years and years of singing to multiple children every night. And so I was so excited that we were able to get it in the film because I loved the way that it resonated thematically, but also just is my favorite song. And then loved being able to also have the other Aretha Franklin cover in the film, The Wait, which had always been my dream when I first wrote the last scene of the film. It had always been my dream to have it end the movie.
In that last scene, was it ever a question to you whether Cal and Terry would kind of make it out of the movie alive?
No, that was always so important to Jordan and me at the script level, that part of the healing of trauma is and doing the work to heal your trauma and to be a good person and to care for and take care of your family is that they are the ones who make it. It's the guys who stayed in it and didn't care about the other people in their lives or care about the people in their families or the damage that they were doing to those around them and the world around them who don't make it to the end of the movie. But that new community and that new family that Jean finds in Cal and Terry's family, them all surviving together was always really important to us to end the film that way.
Okay, and finally, switching topics completely, you mentioned your husband, Jordan Horowitz, a number of times. He was on stage at the Oscars, as we all remember. I think he probably came out of that experience looking better than anyone, but you were mentioned in his speech, you were there. What was your experience with that whole debacle in which they announced the wrong Best Picture?
Yeah, I was shocked that more people were shocked when Moonlight got announced as Best Picture. The moment that thing happened on stage with Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty, I knew something was up. I had also known, it's funny because we are all very good friends with everyone who made Moonlight. Like all the people who made La La Land and the people who made Moonlight are all friends and had become very close throughout the festival and like awards circuit stuff. But everybody knew that like there was this, conversation happening about the two films and which one deserved to win Best Picture. So I had that in my brain, and then that thing happened with Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty, and so I spent the whole time they were up on stage anxious because I already knew something was just. I'm a very like gut, like feel things like that in my body, kind of a person, and I knew something was up. So when it happened, I wasn't surprised. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I definitely had a sense. When it happened, I was like, oh, okay. I wasn't wrong to be feeling all of these things that I was feeling. And I was so proud of him for handling it the way he did, on his feet in front of millions of people. It's no secret that it's anyone who works in the film business's dream to have their movie be nominated for Oscars and to win an Oscar. So to watch him go from thinking he had achieved that to not, live again in front of millions of people, I was just so proud and impressed with him, and also so happy for all of our friends who made Moonlight, because at the end of the day, I often don't like calling it a competition. To me, it's a celebration of the beautiful work that people do every year, and so it's all wonderful. Like to get to even be a part of the conversation and to have your work celebrated in any way, I think is such a gift. So those are my, I don't often get asked about how I felt about that night. So thank you. I'm used to having to hear him talk about it.
Okay, Julia, well, thanks very much for taking the time to chat. Your film is now eligible for Golden Globe, Oscar consideration, and you can make your Golden Globe and Oscar predictions on our website at Gold Derby, and check out other interviews with the cast and crew of I'm Your Woman on our YouTube channel.
Thank you so much, Riley.